Hey, Sadeshna.
Hello. Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining us for another wonderful episode of Community Voices today. And we also have our incredible co host, Sakshi, with us. So say hello, everyone. And as you join in, drop in the chat whether you're joining from which country you're joining in. And yeah, what is the baby weather like? All right. So today, a year ago, most of us have been chatting so much about AI, right? So AI has been like in our feeds, it has been on our conversation. So today we bring you a very relevant question that comes with it. Um, like, what's one task recently, before even we get started, let's dive into a little bit of an activity. So what's one task that you've recently handed over to AI that you would have never imagined that you could hand over to? It could be writing, brainstorming, I don't know, workshop planning. Or perhaps you're like, hey, I'm not letting AI near any of my stuff. So drop that in the chat. We're curious to hear. All right. As you're sharing that, I guess I'll start telling us about what we're chatting about today. So, while you're doing that, in this episode of Community Voices, we are super delighted to welcome our guest, which is Jui Kulkarni, and she'll be sharing with us about AI experiences. So, the one thing that, as the conversation from AI has moved into, is newly AI experiences from, hey, what is the prompt we can write, to what is what are structures of prompt. We are moving to co-pilots, agents, experiences, and how can interactions be between not only just human and AI, but also AI and AI. So there's a whole paradigm of shift that is happening. And we are so excited to have this conversation because it's moved away from not only designing interactions, but designing trust and human behavior. Because we're designing the next generation of what that community, trust, and behavior looks like in this space. So, yeah, let us welcome Juhi to our stage.
Hi,
Hi,
Jui.
Juhi. How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, hello, hello all.
We are excited to have you. This conversation has been going on for months, and I'm so glad we are finally able to do this. All right, let's have a quick round of introductions for all of us. And I can start us off. So, I'm Sudesha Mehta. I'm your host for today. And also, I've been an SDN Community Voices host for over a year now. And then I've also worked with SDN as their ambassador program lead. Over to you, Sakshi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sakshi. I'm a designer, I'm an artist, and I'm an anthropologist. I'm particularly interested in today's conversation because I actually have been knowing Jui for almost 8 years, Jui, right? From our SDD times. And I know that her background kind of overlaps anthropology and human behavior and stuff. So let's see where the discussion with AI overlapping human psychology, anthropology, and things like these go in which direction. Yeah, that's roughly about me.
And for Juhi, I'm going to give you a creative question because we want to get more story time right now. So let's start off with a little bit of time travel. And just imagine that you sent a voice note to Juhi from your past, which is a moment that you'd send a voice note to. And with that, start telling us a little bit about your journey and your professional experience.
Okay, so if I had to send a actual voice note back 5 years ago, I think I think at that point of time in IBM, actually, and I was starting to transition from UX design to research at that point of time. And I'll go to one specific moment, which I recollect, which I have many, but I feel that one thing that I can point out was when I was working on a project. We were building a internal recognition platform for a client. A recognition is about appreciating your peers, colleagues, and your juniors, your higher ups, right? Basically, it's about the appreciation factor. So you're designing that, and what happened is, okay, you follow all the good things, right? All we got a chance to do a grounds up research, real interviews. We spoke with the users, tested it out, built it, and then amazing feedback, all of that. But then when it got launched, it did not match the real expectations, like how it was supposed to be used, all of that. And that got me really thinking what went wrong, or how is it, like, what is it exactly that was not working. I think in that moment I started realizing that when we are thinking about solutions, we are thinking about user centricity and the users needs, all of that, but there is another layer, like a deeper layer to it, about human behavior. So that's, I think, was a trigger for me into the world of behavior science, or understanding humans deeply, and how we can design for them and their problems, right? Because they're complex. So I think that is a moment I would like to say that, go and pursue behavior science, just do it, right? That was because that is a decision. I'm sitting here today.
Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, Jui, for sharing a little bit about your journey. What was like, I'm also curious, just because what are some of the special chapters? Like you've highlighted one, but are there other special chapters that you want to share about?
Definitely, like that is on the professional front, right? Like I did my then masters and then moved on to Fractal, and where I'm working today at the intersection of design, AI, and technology, right? We work in that intersection. So it is very interesting space, I would say, learning a lot every day how we can build solutions and all of that. Another interesting part is my motherhood. Like I have a baby, she's 2 years old, and
Oh, that's
I tell
incredible.
you, other than my work, I think she's the part of my life who keeps me occupied all the time, and I'm learning and unlearning so much in that journey. Yeah.
So,
Oh
Jui,
wow!
I
Like,
actually have something to ask you here. I was recently watching a short movie called Human in the Loop that talks about why human is needed even now when a lot of things are getting automated. And there, the main character is a tribal woman, and she highlights the way she is training AI. She's actually learning herself from the way she's seeing her baby grow. So, have there been any experiences that you would have come across, looking at your baby versus applying, practicing design at work or practicing behavioral science at work? Do you see any connections there?
Oh, definitely. Like, see, I'm learning a lot of things, but then with respect to design and AI, I am working on one particular thing. Like, what I can pinpoint is that about the learning development of a language in a baby, right? And this comes with a series of observations, right? This was not a like a aha moment at once, but series of observation happened. And when I started up seeing the patterns in the work professional life that I'm using, I could draw then the patterns, right? So what happened, little bit of backstory is, see how babies learn, right? They don't have a very evolved vocabulary, so they interact in tones, voices, and all of that. But yes, they understand what you say. Like, say I ask her to bring a book or keep the shoe here, she understands that intent, but she doesn't have a vocabulary fully developed to respond in all the time, right? And but then sometimes she responds to different tones, different languages also, because she is exposed to 4 different languages now, right? So but then
Oh.
she's able to understand the intent and respond to it without having that vocabulary and all of that. So I would say she's able to comprehend but not produce the vocabulary. And this, like, I was able to name these terminologies when I kind of understood. LLM completely inverts that, right? Because when you ask something to LLM, like comprehension and production, I think follows almost the same architecture. So you really don't know if AI understood what you have said, but then it still confidently responds to you. So I think the model of the story is, what I've understood from this is, I'll never treat what AI said And if AI understood as the same things, they are different. And I
Um,
think that's the moral of the story. And for us as designers, I don't think we are here to build smarter models. Like technologists and all are doing an excellent job at that. But I feel what our job is to build that interaction environment, because I think how babies are learning is not only through the language, right? We're not teaching just language, we're teaching them tones, and they're learning from so many other inputs around them, right? Sounds, all of that, right? So I feel it is very social, it is not isolated, right? It is not just because of she's interacting with me or the family members, other things as well around her. So I think it applies the same way with AI, and we have that opportunity and responsibility to design that interaction environment with AI. And that is what I would call is a human choreography, and it is getting complex with agentic systems coming into play, right?
Actually, that is what I was going to ask you next, because AI has evolved quite a lot, especially in last 2 years, right? Almost reinvented itself. So from conversational AI to now agentic AI that actually act on our behalf, I have a little creative question for you. If AI were a character in a story, how would you describe its journey so far based on your experience with AI till now?
I wish you had asked me only about the evolution of AI. I could have just taken you through a journey
I
and
would
just
love to
spoken
hear
about it.
about that. Yes.
I think interesting. Hard to say. Like I can relate to what where AI is today or how I'm feeling with respect to designing. I can only say I can say I feel like a teenager. Like not me myself. I feel that AI is in the stage of a teenager, the character. And don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that it is excellent at is accomplishing astonishing things at speed and all of that, but then it is capable of overconfidence as well, and that's what I relate to.
Mhm.
And when you deal with the teenagers, I feel that you can't just interact with them or give them commands. It is going to backfire. So what works with them is boundaries, setting them in advance, the guardrails, etc., right? And that is how you design and gain trust, earn trust. Like it is not built in a day or sorts. So the relation is very delicate. So if you see, for a teenager, if you don't give them a lot of space, their growth is stunted, right? In every manner. But if you give them a free floor, or a playground for them, then they learn through, like they find those edge cases, right? Like edges, very hard way you learn. So you cannot really restrict them, you cannot let them open. So the bounded by, I think, guardrails and boundaries is what I feel relatable with AI as a character right now, where it is in the journey.
Got it.
I don't know if this makes sense, but
It does. It does.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you've
Actually,
constantly been
mhm.
talking about it like almost developmental psychology, which is like, hey, this is the child psychology, then the teenage psychology. I love how you've been connecting
In
all
fact,
of
the analogy that you mentioned about, comparing AI with teenage, that actually makes me think about the kind of energy teenagers we have at our teenage stage. If a proper structure is given to it, that is where the key to, getting the right outcome is, or, a required outcome is from a person versus an AI. Also, AI is also work with, if you give them a right structure, they're able to do your work in a much better way compared to leaving it completely open and giving it a very open question.
Yeah.
yeah, that is true. That also goes to say like AI is no longer, when you're designing for AI, as you were telling as designers, we bring in a very different lens of, we're not just designing sort of interactions with it anymore. We're starting to design a relationship, as you said. It's like, okay, we're designing this kind of a relationship for it. So what is that ideal relationship between like humans and AI, actually agents at this point, look like? And what would be most important in the design element? Like, are there design values that should be kind of guiding it? Should it be more of trust and control? I know you actually already mentioned boundaries, so that's like one of the things that I'll highlight out there. But are there other things that we should also like create in order to have that ideal relationship, and what does that look like in your perspective?
Yeah. It's a very layered question. So I'll go with the relation, right? I'll start with that. I think AI or agents like that, I can consider right now is that they can be like a working partner, or a great colleague you have, whom you can rely on, lean on, whenever you like feel like, and they know your strengths and blind spots as well. And then it's not like you defer all the activities to them, or well, vice versa, right? It is an interaction that you're developing, sorts of. So I feel that is what it is, and you need to rely on them for certain things, but still few things that you have to do. I feel that is a relation, I would say, is there. And then while designing these for the such solutions, I feel when we say we are automating or we are creating an agent, I feel we are replicating the actual workflows, and we are agentifying that, right? So we and there are frictions in the real world, right? And when we're doing that, it doesn't automatically like vanish, but actually it relocates that same friction, and that is where we designers play a very important role. Like we have to be very careful that this doesn't get translated there, because when it is agentified, it is having a lot of autonomy that you design around it, right? And then it can show up elsewhere or at many places downstream. So that's the, I think, careful designing that needs to be done and thought of as a system, and not just like, hey, I'm building an agent for this task. What does it do? Who all are involved, and what are the dependencies or interactions? I think that choreography is what I was talking about, right? And that is what is kind of deciding or working on that, like the relationship between the agent and the human.
Yeah. And I love that you've applied like a systems thinking lens to it.
Hmm.
Like, hey, what do we like zoom out and look at it in the broader space? Who is it interacting with? And then internally also, like, what is maybe even the data that it is interacting with? Because they have different models, and we're also talking about behavior. So there are a couple of different things over here if we start to actually pull them out together. But I love the way you put it.
Yeah. And I think you also mentioned about the control trust aspects,
Hmm.
right? I think if I have to put it together, they are like used sometimes interchangeably or as a larger umbrella as well, like when you speak about agents. But there are three different things. But I think underneath each is one more layer that I feel like I spoke about boundary, yes, but there is also the aspects of legibility, and I'm tying back to the same one, which the learning I had from my interaction with my daughter, right? I said like the legibility means that what the system is understood about the goal that you've asked it to do, and how it is doing. I think if that is clear, then it can proceed and function autonomously. And that gives a lot of control and leads to better trust, actually, like what the system is able to do and not do, right? And then, of course, it gives you a better layer of explainability also. So for me, legibility is one of the binding factors for control, trust, and explainability, which are three different things again. Like control is like, okay, who is intervening when and all of that, right? And trust is actually, again, it's not just one interaction, it is built over time. And then explainability is definitely like not only like, hey, I followed xyz steps to reach there, but also like giving the transparency of what all is used, what all is not used, what was missing, those anomalies. If it's able to point out, I think that together they like becomes a very successful recipe for best AI experience that you design.
Definitely. Can you give us a little bit of an example as to what that might look like? It could be anything that, it might help people visualize what you're talking about, because this is such an important point and I want to spend a little bit more time here.
Yeah, definitely. I can give a recent example that we did, right? We developed a project for a bottling company. Uh, okay, I'll simplify this, right? How it used to work. And this is involving data insights team. So a lot of other personas in the company reach out to them, having different priorities, but they want to know, okay, this data sits here in the company, but I want to understand why something is happening, the why analysis of it. You know that, okay, sales are going down or the brand is declining or whatever, but now you want to understand why. So they are not able, they are not data specialists or something, right? So they reach out to a certain team and they ask questions like, hey, why this brand is declining, or can you give me this quarter analysis, can you compare that with the past quarter, how are we performing against the target, etc., right? Any number of questions, and these reach to this team by email, and sit in their inbox like a list of items that they have to tick. They take each question, sit with multiple data sets, work on the analysis, build the summary, and send it to the respective users. Now, here, if you see, the behavior is, hey, I send this question to this person. Now you know who this person is, who their specialty is, what they work, how they work, all of that. There's very, like a very clear chain of command, and also the responsibility, right? You know that response that you're getting is verified by someone. You can pinpoint. Now, say to fix this, but then what it was causing is a lot of problem and lot of overhead for these people, right? Because so many people and multiple countries, multiple markets were reaching out here. So basically, what was happening is the response time was getting higher, and the people are getting overloaded with lot of work. So now the simple fix was like, hey, can they ask the question to a tool, and that AI system can respond to them, correct? So if you just develop this tool and send it, it will definitely have a problem of adoption, because again, it was just not that, okay, I asked the question and I'm getting the answer. They're still getting the answer, but there is no person, they can't pinpoint at someone, like there's no accountability here. How do
Mm,
you know that this answer is correct? What is the underneath data they're using? Of course there is explanation and all, but there is still a way that they have to always go back and check. So the element of trust and all of that, and it's just not that. If you see, it's a behavior change for them. Like they were asking a person, now they have to ask a machine, and they don't know how to prompt and all of that, right? Because that was not part of the earlier workflow.
yeah.
So you see the changes start from there. Now, while we were designing for this, we got a real chance to collaborate with the technical folks to understand how we can only not influence the user facing layer, that is the UI aspect of it. Like, okay, we designed this flow, but okay, how do we influence the tone, the personality, how it follow ups with the questions, how it asks clarifying questions, right? And how do you show those explainability elements, how do you show the latest information to them which they can trust, like, hey, when this data was uploaded and all of that, right? So those kind of elements really helped us make a better solution. Now with respect to UAT and all of that, that received an excellent response, right? And that is, I think, towards building a better solution. So I think that is a recent example which I think, and whatever I'm thinking of the AI experiences, or I'm able to talk about this, this was the founding project that led to all this thinking, and I'm experimenting this further with the framework and all of that.
Yeah, and that's like the perfect example for human AI choreography, which is our title of the episode. So I love that you brought that up.
Actually, also, when you mentioned about working on or designing AI-based solutions, right? But AI is hallucinate. So how do you design for this constraint? How do you build trust when you know that your partner, your design partner itself is not reliable?
Um, so I have a very different point of view, right? Because AI hallucinate, say 1 year or 2 year ago, I think that was a new information, but we know, right? AI hallucinates, and you know why? I mean, we can read and research point this out, right? That AI hallucinate for a reason, because they are not bounded by, like they are meant for that creativity and that liberty, right? They have to kind of do that. If you disable that, AI wouldn't be like the generative AI wouldn't be what it is today. So, but then I feel that it is a problem. AI hallucinates, that overconfidence, and you really have to. You cannot rely completely. But then I feel that's a known constraint, and we can design around it, and that's where our role comes, like much larger. But I feel that when you are designing this agentic and multi-agentic system, there are much larger problems, right? Like, okay, you're taking this workflow and agentifying it. If you don't connect those checkpoints properly, there are verifications, there are checkpoints, there are people involved, there could be approvals. there could be so many things, like, and then there could be dependencies also, like one agent is dependent on somebody, right? And all of that, so like that I feel that those choreography elements and these checkpoints, if not designed properly, that could actually lead to a much larger impact in the solution. Because again, if AI hallucinates, you can build boundaries and those guardrails around that to check and all of that. But then that is one of the problem, but I feel larger problem is when you're talking about multi agentic system, how do you design that interaction is important. Like, we do journey mapping, right? So I'm trying to build an analogy, and this helped me in a very like couple of recent work that I was doing. We would like, okay, we want to build this agent and all of that. You start imagining about the problem and then say, okay, I want to build these agents and all. There could be multiple agents in that scenario. I'll take a recent example which everybody can relate to. Like, everybody has used e-commerce, right? Now in e-commerce, say multiple brands have promotions, etc., on the Amazon or any other platforms, right? Now to enable that, there are multiple things happen within a company to enable promotion and meet the demand, and have a proper supply for it, right? So basically this problem, I'm just simplifying it very much. There could be multiple people and multiple teams and stuff like that involved. But I'm saying that, hey, if there's a cultural event coming up, like there's a sport event, or there is a Valentine's Day, there is a festival, anything, you know that certain products are going to get into demand and all of that. Now you want to have those promotions for better marketing and all of that. But again, to do that, this person has to check if we are able to fulfill that demand, right? So they go in the back end, check the system, all of that, check with the people responsible. And then, of course, if everything is all right, they send the material for marketing, like, hey, this is to be done. Today, it is happening like with different systems in place where they check everything, all of that, and multiple people are involved, multiple approvals are involved, all of that. Slow, but again visible, right? Now, let's say you've agentified the system. Now, the one agent is your who senses the demand, all of that very quickly. You know the demand. You reach out to this person and check, like, hey, do we have enough supply to um, meet this demand, right? And this system checks and responds. This agent checks and responds, like, hey, this is there. Now the other, like the other agent, like takes this information, prepares the marketing material and all of that, and pushes it out very very independently done and very fast, achieved at a higher speed, right? But then a small checkpoint is not involved. Like, if these two systems didn't update at the same time, like what you are sensing a demand at XYZ point today, and the supply that you have at backend, if that information is not recent, that would actually impact. And you're telling that, okay, this is available, and you're publicly making a mistake at speed, right? Like, this can happen wrongly. So that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to say that when you say LLM hallucinate, yes, that is a bigger problem. But then when we're talking about human agent choreography, I think when you're, and I just use a simple example, right? Like, about this, there are such complex workflows in B2B companies and all of that. They run, so many people are involved, so many multiple vendors could be involved. So what do you do then when you agentify? I mean, of course, there is advantage in agentifying. You saw how quickly it happened. There was no dependency, there was autonomy and all of that. But if choreographed properly, that choreographs well, if there's a proper checkpoint designed for those verifications and all, I feel that is more like, that is also important. Underrated, and I don't know, like, but I've not seen such like, I found very useful when I started thinking about this and developed those workflows, and we designed then the solutions, right? I think that was much useful for the users as well. They're like, okay, yeah, you're thinking about all the steps here, and this is where, I would like to intervene, all of that, right? So I think we are getting such feedback.
Got it.
Definitely. And I think you have throughout the conversation highlighted this part, adoption. Like, we know AI is there, we know agents are there, and we know everything that we can design with AI. But the main part is when there's a system that has been existing for all the different workflows, it's been pre AI. And now when we are adopting it, what do we actually do in order to build these new systems that have that choreography element. So and you've spoken a little bit about this, but I'm also curious about, say, what are some of the skills that as designers, as service designers, in fact, we need to embody and start putting in our starter AI experience design pack as we embark on this journey of being the ones designing those AI human experiences.
Mm, yeah, I think that's what, like, the main thing is about designing for the non-human behavior right now. So I would say agent behavior. I don't know if I can rightly call it like that, but when when you're designing for agentic systems, that means you're designing for that agent behavior, right? Now, and that is non-human. So what do you do, right? And this is a couple of things that I can share with you. Again, it's what I'm learning, and might not be fully evolved as a idea, but what is helping me, I can share in a couple of points, is that one is definitely like a boundary I spoke about, right?
Yeah.
What the AI is able to do and not do, um, and okay, I'll tell you the fundamental shift that mainly we have to focus on is it's not just about the commands or prompts anymore. You're giving AI a goal, right? Like when you say the agent is okay, then maybe when you give a goal, now that goal has to be clarified, and whenever you're giving a task or a trigger, that what steps that is going to follow, if that clarity or the visibility is there, I feel that is a first step. So that boundary awareness, what is happening, when it is happening for the user, it's important. Let it happen autonomously, but I think it should not be a black box, right?
Yeah.
I think that is one of the thing about boundary awareness. Secondly, I would say, I don't know what I should call it, but about the transparency of how the system is performing. And
Hmm.
this has two layers, right? One is the transparency with the users, right? Like, hey, the system is able to do this or not, you have to tell it. Like, if it is able to say successfully queried a lot of stuff successfully, you can say that 47 out of 50 times it is able to do that. If you are able to show such statistics and all, that kind of gives confidence to the users, right? And it's important for the organizations also to track this, like, okay, what is going wrong, right? If people are not getting the answers, if they're getting constantly like a thumbs down reaction or something like that, it's important to track it, and that transparency needs to be actioned upon as well. Like, and then if you can share reality with the users, that will also contribute to the uh, explainability and the trust elements, right?
Hmm.
And I think one more is about explainability element. When you're saying, okay, agent is doing all of this, but if you say there is still a checkpoint, right? I feel this is also important with respect to choreography. Now you say that the agent has done 10 steps and given you this analysis, but it needs your approval, right? That approval is not a signature or a rubber stamp, right? It is like accountability for that person. Now, does that person have all that information? Because again, it is agent has done it, right? But has it done it correctly or not? That person need not go through all the 10 steps, but also check what is happening. So does that person have enough information to check, so that he or she can approve? I feel that we need to enable. And if you have to enable such decisions, right, so under pressure or with whatever, like time constraints, right, you're asking that person to approve, and you have identified this, that is at speed all the work is happening. But if you're asking those checkpoints to check something, are they able to check under pressure and proceed? Like, maybe there is another action that the agent is waiting after your approval, right? Or it is going to the next step of, maybe approving of a certain budget or something like that, right? But then that person is held accountable. So how can you bring in those elements, the visibility and the explainability of the decisions or the steps and whatever has happened, right? For that end user who is approving or taking a decision, how can you enable those decisions? And I feel one more thing is, okay, the example that I was giving you, we developed the AI insights, the tool, right, which was responding. I feel AI can go wrong, AI can hallucinate and all of that. But while designing for errors and designing for fallback mechanisms is also important. So that's also part of your choreography, because when AI can go wrong, how can you gracefully show the failure points, right, and hand it over? Like if there is a very critical thing that the agent cannot do, or there is a anomaly in the data point, or that step is not going to go ahead, do you have a circuit breaker in the loop, right? So
Yeah.
that should be there, that there should be a handoff if necessary, right? And if not, if you're saying there is an approval point or whatever, right, and if it is not happening, there are errors or um, failure points happening, I think how do you fall back? How do you show, like, okay, this is not happening? Show them it should not be a dead end, basically, like how we used to design, right? Okay, this page is not visible, so you take them back to that home page or something like that, right? Or I'm giving a very back, like a very simple example where I'm saying that you should give them alternatives, like, hey, this is not working, this is not happened, and then how do you give them alternative ways to kind of do it? Or then, or if nothing else works, how do you hand off, right? I think that needs to be defined, that needs to be designed, taken into account while designing.
Yeah, those are some really amazing points. Thank you so much for sharing them, Jay. I know all of you would be having a lot of questions, so this is the time we're entering into the Q&A section. Please share your questions in the chat as we continue our conversation with Jui. She has covered such incredible points, and I, yeah, know you have a lot of things you want to ask her. So let's open the Q&A. All right.
Anything you want to share, Sakshi and Sudeshna, like from the AI or human AI choreography that you have come across recently?
I have there's a project that I'm working on which is about making I can't reveal much about it, but yeah, making the personas work easier with AI. And then during our primary research, we figure out that the persona itself is afraid of losing the job if we use AI to make his or her work easier. So in the process, we are yet to figure out, while talking to them, how do we, in this case, how do we build trust? I think one way that seems that could enable this is to not give 100% control of the workflow to AI, but always ensure that the persona remains relevant in the workflow. And in this way, they are also able to feel control of the system. They are accountable. And in the process of this, they are able to build trust with the system. And then probably at later stages, they decide how much autonomy they want to give to the AI system.
Yeah. Yeah, so identifying those points are very important, and it
Right.
should not be overdone as well, like, accept all sort of a thing, like
Right.
blindly. Yeah.
Right. I think it's a
Uh,
journey where we figure out how much is too much, how much less is too less. So yeah, figuring out the balance.
that is true. I don't have a project, but I do want to ask a question. And this was something that I know an MIT professor was researching on it. He called AI data as all historical data. So it's almost like a cognition of all the people existing in the world right now. And it kind of takes that and creates intelligence. But what it is missing is the biases part. And I know all of us deal with that a lot. There is hallucination, there is bias, but it is inbuilt in historical data. So, as simple as, oh, if you're maybe creating a new system with historical data, does it actually have the output of the intended system? So, what do you do at that point? Like, do you create fake data to kind of ask it to be like, hey, this is your reference point? But I'd be curious if you faced a situation like that, and what, just broadly, what would you think is a good way to deal with this?
Yeah, again, when it comes to LLMs, I want to be completely honest here, right? You cannot take the bias away from the data, what is there. You cannot take that away because it is filled with it, maybe, right? But then I feel when you're designing for solutions, then you have to look for those checkpoints always. Like you've, okay, made the solution live, you have to keep observing the responses that are happening. And with bias, I feel I read in a paper that you cannot pinpoint like a bias pattern with few responses here and there, right? It
Yeah.
needs to be an aggregate of that, and then that's what you do. You periodically check those things, and maybe that's and then action upon it also. Like if you are observing something, change that, right? And that's the only way to do about it. I think you cannot get rid of biases at all, because it's with the people, it's with the data, historical data.
Yeah.
And I would be lying if I say it's possible to deny like design without it. But I think being aware about that and keeping those checkpoints even after your solution is built, especially with this AI, see if there are any specific groups or whatever is kind of getting a type of responses, or all of that which is not intended for it. And if you see such a pattern in an aggregate, I feel that's where you action upon it. Yeah, I think.
But it also presents an opportunity for us designers, wherein now we see that these biases are directly going to have impact on people's lives.
Yeah,
It has always have had impact, but now when the impact is so direct, it's like an opportunity for us to design frameworks, to design those checkpoints, to ensure to minimize the impact of such biases, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. I think that that can be another hour.
yeah, that
Yes.
in itself
Yeah.
can be a session, to be honest. Yeah.
Yes.
True, true. Okay, now I'm gonna just ask you one question. If you like, you've been working a lot in this intersection. You have worked with design, you've worked with behavior, technology, now AI systems. What is something that you've been dying to answer, but no one's ever asked you yet? I'm gonna make you ask. Tell us the question.
Oh no, I think I get a lot of questions. I myself ask about AI and all of that. I feel
Yeah.
what we don't discuss much is about, hey, where do we bring in that human judgment, right? And
Mm.
when we say about this all human AI choreography, honestly, who actually also initiate these conversations, or even decides that this choreography is right, all of that, right? I feel those are the things I think we should raise, we should discuss, and we should take ownership, and that's where design leadership comes in, I feel, because that's where that human judgment element needs to come in. While you say that, okay, this stays human, this, okay, this is okay to agentify or make it autonomous, all of that, right? I feel today that is very fragmented. Design owns it, not sure. Technology thinks of it, don't know, right? And that
Yeah.
kind of is creating a lot of ownership issues also, I feel that is a more important question. I feel we should ask each other, so that hey, like, if, and that's where the design leadership comes in, I feel so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have something to add here actually. I feel when we are designing systems, the primary question should be, should we do it socially, culturally, and do our values reflect in the system? Rather than discussing about, is this technically possible to build? So first question should be, should we even do this?
Yeah. And that actually spans across all innovation. Like, should you even be trying to experiment with this?
Right.
I remember reading a paper about like cells, biological cells that were mutated to be beings that they could test on specifically. So they are living beings and they're being tested on. And I guess there is a lot of ethical boundaries that comes into question when you talk about any kind of innovation, because those boundaries definitely slows down innovation. At the same time, it makes sure that you remain within the what is ethical, what is not ethical. But then that sparks another discussion. What is ethical? Because it's across the countries, right? It is, it's a global, like we are implementing global systems now. It's not isolated within one country. So it does not have to adhere to like say your constitution or something like that. Is it adhering to the cultural beliefs of a particular country? So it starts a very wide discussion of what should be the policy framework that actually guides
Right.
these innovations.
Yeah, true.
Sakshi, I know you had like a futuristic question
Ah,
for
yes. Uh,
our guest.
why don't we do a rapid fire, Sadeshna, with Joey? So Joey, I'm going to ask you three set of questions, and you can answer them either in one word or one sentence only.
Only. Okay.
The first question. Actually, Sudeshna, why don't you also take up the rapid fire? I'll start from Joey, and then you can also answer.
Okay, great.
First one. Most
On the
surprising
rapid
thing
fire
AI has taught you.
What? Sorry.
Most surprising thing that AI has taught you.
Like, I'll tell you what, it's about AI token calculation. I never thought I would be doing that, and with the credit restrictions, I feel that I'm always on the go. Like, okay, I want to do this task. How many credits will it use? And I'm calculating and all of that, and I'm doing that at scale right now for the team as well. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So, but this is the funny thing. I never thought I would have to do this, but AI has taught me that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
All right, Sudeshna, what about you? Most surprising thing that AI has taught you.
process documentation. Like I used to think that I write processes pretty well, but the amount of customization I have to do with process documentation just for the AI
Mhm.
to replicate the workflow is wow. I feel like I have become a professional documenter.
All right,
How
next
about
one.
you then, Sakshi?
Me, uh, I should have thought about answers to the questions I
This
was
is a
going to ask.
Just
rapid
before asking.
fire, rapid round robin.
Uh, I think not directly jumping in the solution.
Hmm.
Hmm.
A lot of times in these 2 years, especially the projects that I have been working on, each and every time I directly went to AI whenever I had a project in hand, I had to redo everything, everything. All right, next question. One design principle that will never change.
Mm, I wouldn't call it a design principle, but I think principle overall is, I think, if someone has to be accountable, or someone has to own the outcome always, right? I think that shouldn't change.
Right.
So that principle I would apply going forward. Yeah, so that is.
Yep. Yep.
How about you?
Psychosocial safety, and this is something around psychological safety where we want to make sure that every person interacting has
Mm-hmm.
that. We were talking about ethics, but definitely just feeling safe in order to have that interactions. A lot of times people are really influenced by what they see and what they read.
True.
That also causes a lot of
Yep.
like very they're listening to only views of a particular system that is customized to them, so they're not accepting external views, and that makes them very rigid. So yeah.
Got it. For me, I would say that would be empathy. I'm not sure if I could call it a design principle. However, empathy ingrained in social interactions.
Yeah,
Mhm. All right, the last question. One word that describes the future of AI-based experiences.
I think choreography for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I, I don't have a particular I'm thinking choreography is actually such a beautiful
Yeah.
but there's I don't know if you've seen the solar punk is one of the sci-fi based new art styles, which is futuristic AI with human interaction, and also taking into account the the ecology, so like the world systems.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's an interesting, okay, maybe solar punk.
I don't really have a word to describe this, but I would say incorporating the cultural aspects of being a human into the digital world is something where I see AI going in future. I'm not sure how far it is, but I'm hopeful about it.
Yeah.
Having like a moral compass.
Yes, which will come from, culture, the religion, all these things. The base itself is morality. The base itself is how do you build trust between people within a society, cross-cultural collaborations, and things like that. I really hope to see all of that happening with AI.
Yeah, I just picked up that idea. Like when I we spoke about boundaries, you remember?
Yes.
Those boundaries can have these cultural elements embedded into it. So cultural boundaries. Yeah, nice idea.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. I think with that, we are at the end of our session. Thank you so much, Yuki. It was wonderful having you, and you shared so much with us. I'm sure all our audience is taking away a lot of insights. And if you have any final words to share with our audience,
Nothing. I'm working in this space with a lot of projects done. I'm learning and documenting that, building a framework sort of, right? I shared a couple of pointers with you. If that resonates with you and you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, we can build that together. We can soundboard ideas as well if you are in the same journey, right? So I would love to learn from you guys as well if you have any pointers to share. So reach out, stay in touch, I would say.
amazing. That's an open invitation for you to reach out to Juhi. And again, once more, thank you, Juhi, for
Thank
sharing your
Thank you
you.
for
insights.
having me. I think I had a wonderful chance because I think we keep having these conversations individually, but bringing it to the stage. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity, first of all. And yeah, it was great. I think you guys made me so comfortable. So thank you so much.
You actually gave me quite a bit of food for thought when talking about starting with, how AI is like a baby, how AI is like a teenage, and then now we're talking about cultural, religious, ethics. So let's see how far AI is from getting that mature.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we spoke
Yeah, the
quite
entire
a lot.
life
a lot
cycle.
of
And to be honest, if I was not like having a baby or something, I wouldn't have brought that perspective. So touch wood, I have gotten a chance to experience that myself firsthand, see how that is learning, and yeah, whatever I can learn from it and apply in the workplace. Yeah, I mean, it was a very much like benefit for me. So yeah,
amazing. All right, thank you, everyone,
thank you so
and
much.
I will see
Bye.
you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So, as we're coming to the end of the episode, just wanted to bring you some interesting discounts. We have our Service Design Global Conference, and for that, we have a special discount for the public sector. And this is specifically for NGOs, universities. And if you're working in the impact space, this is your chance to attend the conference and engage with people in service design and broaden your horizon. So if you haven't gotten your ticket already for this international event, I would ask you to do so. All right. Thank you so much, Sakshi. It was lovely having you. And thank you, everyone. See you next week. Bye.